Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. This time another movie, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. It's different. Lots to talk about here. Speaking of, there was so much to talk about. You're listening right now to the regular edition, the just merely awesome edition. Become a Patreon member, patreon.com/IBD, and you'll get the bonus content, the extended version, and you get to look at our mugs. Yeah, that's right. Check that out. Become a Patreon member. It's real easy. Lots of people are doing it. Everyone's doing it to get that extra tent that is being slung around. Speaking of extra tent, yeah, we're talking the movie, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. I was going to make it The Voyage Home. That's still going? No, it's not. It's Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, here on It's All Been Trekked Before.
Welcome back to another episode of It's All Been Trekked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. And as usual for special episodes, we're joined once more.
Hello, I'm Marianne.
He's our special guest, clearly.
Any episode where Marianne's here is special. So we're here to talk Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Best Star Trek movie or bestest Star Trek movie?
How about a 1 hour and 45-minute episode?
It's
not as bad, not as close to an episode as Insurrection, but I don't disagree entirely.
Yeah, you're not far off. It's, as Carl Ferguson once said, it's aggressively okay.
Yeah, it's a movie. It's a Star Trek movie.
Yeah. I definitely didn't hate it, and I'm getting way ahead, but Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 22%, which I think is very unfair. But
yeah, it had some good jokes in it. It had some laughable moments that I was like, oh gosh, you remember those people? I like that.
Yeah, I get why people don't like it and why it ends up where it ends up, but there are still some good moments.
A lot of good moments. The story definitely has weaknesses. The main plot, especially in the second half, but the character moments and the jokes are great.
Those are great.
Pretty much the same. My memory of it was a lot dimmer than I would have. I don't know. It seems to be the case for all of these things so far. It's just I don't know what's going on. It's just I always feel like I know at least a little bit, or I start to remember more as I go through it.
Mine was super dim because I'd never seen it. So
that's surprising.
Really?
Yeah, I hit 4 and I apparently got off the bus and was done. Yeah.
Wow. Have you seen the sixth one?
No, Colleen knew this one better than me, so she was way ahead of me.
I can't believe you've never seen this.
One.
And I know I've talked about how I kind of drifted away or whatever, and I can get into this later as well, but I kind of looked into the movies of 1989 to be like, well, what was I up to? This was the number 21st grossing movie of the year, and I saw like 11 of the top 21, now 12 with this one. But yeah, clearly I was not seeing a lot of movies because even a bunch of those I didn't see at the theaters. And one of the ones I haven't seen is Ghostbusters 2. So
wow.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that. So I just saw Dead Poets Society. I just saw this, and there was something else, Colleen, that I just watched that I'd never seen. So
wow.
I was busy living that college life and working 2 jobs and
frustrating as you are with frustrated as you may be with Star Trek V, you're in for a huge treat with Star Trek 6. Let me tell you.
And as I was watching and as I started doing my research after watching, I was reminded of the 246 good, 135. So I know Jimmy and I like one better than most people, but yeah,
I've got a very special place in my heart for the first one.
Yeah, and I do too, and I think it's. Yeah, and we discuss it. Go back and listen to that podcast.
If we're going to take a minute for Star Wars comparisons, I've maintained that Empire's the better movie, but Jedi's fun. So I'm going to say that Star Trek The Motion Picture is the better movie, but Star Trek V might be more fun.
I agree.
That's I wasn't sure where that analogy was going, but now I get you. Now I'm with you. Yes.
So the story was by Harve Bennett, who produced Star Trek 2, 3, 4, and 5. William Shatner, who you guys might know, he played a role on Star Trek every once in a while.
Okay.
James T. Kirk. And then David Lowry, who ended up writing the screenplay for the 3 of them. He is best known for writing The Intruder, Lakeview Terrace, Obsessed, Passenger 57. He's got like 16 writing credits. Not huge into not a big renowned thing, but he did write the screenplay for the 1993 movie, The Three Musketeers, and Tom and Huck, with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and Elijah Wood. So besides those guys writing this movie, William Shatner directed it. That's kind of what this movie's known for. Was Shatner had a clause in his contract that everything Nimoy got, he got. And Nimoy got to write and direct a Star Trek movie, so Shatner called into that clause. No, this is completely serious.
So wait, the clause was literally stated in that way? I mean,
Yep, sure was.
Man.
Yep. I know, Keith. So that's why they gave Shatner this movie, and it felt like a Shatner movie.
It did
in many ways. The thing that bothered me the most about it was I felt like, and this is back to classic Trek, Kirk got to be the hero for everything. Most of the other characters were played for a laugh or exploitations of some sort.
I think that's fair. I think a lot of the Takei and everyone in the cast, actually, they said they enjoyed his directing. They thought he did a good job. He had other issues. A lot of those issues came from other places, but you're right. And I think it was Nimoy who said, I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty close. Well, it had a lot of running and jumping, and those are always Bill's favorite parts of doing the show.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and
that said, it should have been one of the other things I read and I agree with was a lot of the action wasn't good, and that's not even getting into the effects, which is another thing. But yeah, the action should have been better than it was. But
he complained about running out of money for effects and stuff that he wanted.
This got real cheap, and ILM was busy doing the other two of the movies that did great that summer, which was Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which I also haven't seen, and Ghostbusters 2. So
wow.
Yeah, so
I'm surprised still.
Yeah, so they not only did ILM not have the people to afford to give to them, they couldn't even afford it anyway. So,
well, thankfully in Star Trek VI, that was directed by Nicholas Meyer, who directed Wrath of Khan, and written by Roddenberry, Leonard Nimoy, Nicholas Meyer, and a few other people.
And so I think, even if the effects were good, it probably wouldn't save this movie, but it wouldn't make it feel like Marianne said, the episode thing. That really makes it feel like TV. Because as I'm watching, and obviously we're in the middle of watching Next Generation, it's like these are the guys on Next Generation are like, nope, we're not going to air this episode with those effects. They had better effects. Yeah. Terrible.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
I thought the running and jumping to me, and this could be me reading into it based on what I know of Shatner now, but I felt it was a direct answer from Shatner's ego to the themes of the last few movies of we're all old now.
Right.
Shatner's like, no, we aren't. Let me show you. Let me prove it.
I think that's fair. I think that's very fair.
Well, Sulu almost didn't come back because he was like, I'm worried about, and he said he ended up being fine. And there were a few others that had said he was a little bit annoying. Like Leonard Nimoy said, the hardest part was William Shatner trying to tell him how to ride a horse when he had a whole movie series and stuff where he rode horses on bareback.
Yep.
So this is nothing for me. I will be fine, but yet got mansplained to him on how to do it.
We begin on Nimbus 3 in the neutral zone, which is known as the planet of galactic peace, where weapons are forbidden.
I warned her going into it that they're going to end this scene with such a hilarious joke that you're not going to be able to contain yourself. And if you recall, that joke was, "You're a Vulcan."
You're a Vulcan?
And just laugh line, like end of the episode laugh line for a good minute.
No, I thought the idea of Nimbus 3 is really cool, and they do revisit it in the Star Trek Picard prequel novel. They return to Nimbus 3, and we get to see what it's like 100 years later. But the idea that the Federation, the Klingons, and the Romulans would create this planet in the neutral zone that they would found together, and then bureaucracy or whatever just made it fail entirely. It rings really true and realistic to me.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
I kind of dug that.
Opening a movie with a place called the Planet of Peace kind of tips the hand immediately that, oh, guess what? It's not going to be a Planet of Peace.
Well, that name is always thought of anytime the planet's mentioned in Star Trek novels and whatever.
Yeah.
It's always laughed at, ironically. I mean, clearly. But I don't know who came up with that concept, but I think that was a brilliant way to start the movie, honestly.
The
planet itself, not the planet, confrontation so much, but the planet itself.
Yeah, I wrote down and I got this confirmed when I read some of the reviews. I thought the opening was really Mad Maxy at first, and then and we'll get real deep into this. I thought it was also very Rathacani.
Yeah,
and I thought I wasn't gonna like that, but I'll tip my hand on this. I thought Lawrence Luckenbill was really good. I really liked. I liked him, and I liked, for the most part, I liked his character's arc and everything. I thought he was a good villain. I thought he's a villain who believes in what he's doing, and obviously Khan did too. But
you're talking about Sybok?
Sybok, yeah.
Lawrence Luckenbill. This is what he's best known for. He's still alive. He's got 51 acting credits. I mean, he did a few episodes of Murder, She Wrote. He was a narrator of a TV miniseries called Space. But this is, what he's best known for. This was his big role. And I agree with Steven. I think he did great. It bothers me a little bit that Spock has a secret sibling.
Yeah, that's the one part I don't care for.
But then Discovery did it again, where we find out Spock has a second secret sibling. That's the lead in Discovery.
Was that, and that was another one that Sarek had without Amanda?
No, so Sybok was Sarek's from a previous relationship.
Right.
Michael Burnham, who's the lead character in Discovery, was a human that Sarek adopted.
Oh, right.
Who was a few years older than Spock.
That's right.
So they grew up together, closer in age than Sybok.
I can't remember if I read this in a Trek site or just a regular site, and they were not pleased that Sarek had a child without Amanda involved, and I felt the same way. I don't know why. I'm very possessive of Amanda, which for whatever reason, and I feel very, very protective, which is another reason I have issues with. We'll get to it in 10, 15 years, Star Trek 2009, but yeah.
I don't think they needed to make Sybok Spock's brother to tell the story effectively. I think there's another way in. An old family friend, an uncle, something.
Just from the references, it was like, okay, these guys clearly had some kind of relationship.
An uncle would have been perfect, considering he was older.
Yeah, something. Just to go back to Lawrence Luckenbill real quick, this is a great tie back to TOS. He is still married to Lucille Ball's daughter, Lucy Arnaz.
Oh,
they've been married since 1980, so that's a great
awesome
connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the other guy who's in the opening with Lawrence Luckenbill is the character of John, I guess, J'_ONN, who's played by Rex Holman, who was in an episode of Star Trek: The Original Series. He played Morgan Earp in the unforgettable episode where they went to the OK Corral. He did a lot of westerns back in the day, Guns of Will Sonnet, The Big Valley. He's still alive as well. He's in Man from U.N.C.L.E. Again, he's an actor that, like Lawrence Luckenbill, didn't have a huge success. This is what he's best known for, and what he's second best known for is playing Morgan Earp in Star Trek: The Original Series. Wow. But he was in Kung Fu, he was in Gunsmoke, he was in and this was actually his very last acting credit, even though he's still alive.
Yeah, and he looked very. I said Mad Maxy. He looked even more like someone out of Mad Max Fury Road than Mad Max or Road Warrior, or Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome. So
I thought he was an interesting looking character.
Yeah.
I was intrigued by the opening, but my favorite line in that scene isn't the Vulcan thing, where he's talking about his field of empty holes. It's all I have.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was such a powerful line. I was very intrigued by this opening. Started
hold my fields.
Yeah.
And see that it.
But that's all I have. But that's all I have is what gets me.
Mm-hmm.
Like
jumping ahead quite a bit, I guess. They seem to address something that we usually bring up when we visit these kinds of worlds, in that there's only like one location. It's an entire planet. It's not necessarily one climate that we know of, but there's only one settlement, so that more or less explains what they're doing there. This is it. But there's still people living outside of it, it looks like, to some extent. He's got his field full of holes. I don't know what the real estate situation is there, how they work and all that thing, or how far across the planet they spread, but they made it so it doesn't really matter because there's this settlement where the ambassadors are, so that's what was important.
Yeah, so we go from that opening.
Keith, are you referring to Paradise City, where the girls are pretty?
Oh, indeed. I just
like that name of the city too.
Every time they said it, and I don't even love that song. I like a lot of GNR, but I don't like that song. That's all I can think of. And then I just felt like that city was even more Mad Max. It was like, okay, here's all the weirdos that are here. And I use weirdos in the pejorative sense of the word.
Since you brought that up, of course, one of my notes is that I can't believe they didn't spring for the song at that point. Right. If you're gonna go that far, just blast that one, as they're coming into it. But the other thing is, I noticed that they had the sign Paradise, and somebody had graffitied the word "lost" next to it.
Yeah,
I thought Steve would appreciate that.
Also, that's also a con reference. That makes sense.
Oh,
Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
So Paradise City, that song by Guns N' Roses, was released in 1987, so it was still a new song when this movie came out.
All right.
Yeah.
Still, it was.
They should have jumped on it.
Yeah. They probably couldn't afford it.
Well, that's true. That I believe. Now they can afford it, probably real easily.
They should have thrown in like a little sound alike or something. The things they do, or they do the
I think it's not until First Contact that we get a pop song in a Star Trek film. They had Magic Carpet Ride by Steppenwolf and Ooby Dooby, Roy Orbison. Anyway, so we get straight from this opening scene into the main titles. Did it feel odd to anybody else? I know the music theme started in the original movies, but did it feel odd to anybody else to basically go straight into the Next Generation theme with the original series actors?
Well, kind of. I mean, for me, it was, well, first of all, I started comparing the little differences between the modern version of the Next Generation and what they do for the film. But also, it felt very much like the opening of an episode. It was about the same length. They had the same main actor names come up, and it was just, okay, we're done, let's go.
They went back to something that they hadn't done since the original series, where it said starring William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, DeForest Kelly.
Interesting.
And then everybody else was under co-starring.
Oh.
The original series only had those first three names. And then the guest actors were also starring, so there were, in the opening credits, it was starring those three, co-starring the other four of the original crew, and then also starring David Warner and Lawrence Luckville, which I get why Cybok's name is in the opening credits. I guess it had to be actor prestige.
Yeah.
But David Warner, there were at least four other characters as big in the movie or bigger than he was, and yet he's in the opening credits and none of them are.
I thought David Warner, he was the
Federation ambassador.
Yeah.
Okay. I suspected I know I've seen him in other things and I can't place him.
For Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, where he'll play a Klingon, the Klingon Chancellor. Right. He was in the movie Titanic. He was in Tron. He was most recently in Mary Poppins Returns, though he's still alive and kicking.
He was in Time Bandits. He was in a movie I've referenced on here before, Time
Penny
After
Dreadful?
Time.
Oh, I love that movie.
He's in a couple episodes of Penny Dreadful.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of fantasy and sci-fi stuff, and so I thought he was going to have a much bigger part. So then as the movie went on, I'm like, oh, he's just a prisoner.
I thought he was in some spy movies.
They brought him back for the sixth movie to give him a better role, even though it's also kind of short-lived. But as the Klingon Chancellor, he's great. And then he's also Gol Madrid in a 2-part episode of The Next Generation that'll be coming up in a couple years, the year after Star Trek 6, so season 6. He gets a meaty 2-part role in Next Gen as a Cardassian.
Oh, cool.
So the original cut of this movie was over 2 hours.
Yeah.
That was the Shatner cut of it. So
you think
not the director cut, but the Shatner cut.
That's in there.
I feel like that's where a lot of these people's things have gone, all the good meaty parts.
Yeah, because I did read up on the Romulan ambassador, and there was a scene with her and David Warner. Actually, you're exactly right, and it ended
Cynthia
up on the cutting room floor. Yes,
who is best known for this part. She's also in The Heart of Justice, The Serpent Warriors. She only has 9 credits.
And then she ended up doing, I think she is still doing saying local news, but out of San Francisco, and then she did some Philly stuff. But.
And then while we're on it, we might as well mention that Charles Cooper played the Klingon ambassador. Mm-hmm. He is also best known for this role. He was in The Wrong Man. He was in Blind Fury. He did die in 2013, so he's no longer with us. He was also in terms of Star Trek, he is in 2 episodes of The Next Generation as a Klingon.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Sins of the Father and Reunion, which we haven't got to yet, but we'll get to next year in Next Gen. So they definitely were big on reusing their act. I mean, they still reuse actors in Star Trek, but Clint Howard was in an episode of Discovery. But it's interesting that they would reuse, for instance, David Warner in back-to-back films, even hiding him in the Klingon makeup.
Yeah.
So after the credits, we go to Yosemite, which is one of the more memorable scenes of any Star Trek movie, in my opinion.
When it came up, Colleen said, "Oh yeah, this is why I love this movie."
Same.
Well, I'll remember it now.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
There were sure a lot of shots of William Shatner climbing, which is where I wrote down. So he's not old. Just McCoy not at all relaxed watching. So once more, we're immediately painted into Shatner's the star. These other guys are supporting him.
Free Solo before Free Solo, and I guess the distant shots were an actual climber, and then the close-up shots were on a set where they created something like that. Yeah. So.
My first note was, I'm not going to be able to hear the word starship without reciting the famous line in my head. That's much later.
Yeah.
Yes. Secondly, I said waiting to see the identity of the climber is a real cliffhanger.
Oh God! I guess I just never remembered not knowing it was Kirk. At some point, I must have not known it was Kirk.
Really?
At some point, the first time I saw it, I must have not known. But at least on this, I immediately thought it was Shatner showing off. It never even occurred to me that they were building suspense of who is this climber. That's interesting.
Well, yeah. Well, I figured. I mean, it felt like that. I mean, part of it, I'm sure, is that you didn't want to show the stuntman, and I think Marianne made that comment at the time as well. But also, it's just the way they were building it. It was almost as if it's either building it for the benefit of the fans, like saying, okay, wait, oh my God, please show his face, let's do it. Or people who weren't familiar with the series or something. I don't know, but it was certainly shaped like that for the scene.
I did think it was weird. Spock shows up and immediately makes a gravity joke. Spock made a couple odd jokes in this movie that I thought felt off, but he did die in life. So
to be fair, I think that was Kirk's joke rather than his. I mean, he mentioned the word gravity, and Kirk ran with it, and he got the punchline.
Spock's the one who said something about you don't see the gravity of the situation or whatever, which was definitely. I could get your point where it might have been unintentional, except Spock does it 3 more times in this movie.
Yeah.
So
I wrote down, I know we talked about this a lot when we were watching TOS, but in this scene, Spock actually gets to be Superman. And fly down and save Kirk, literally. Colleen enjoyed actually, I did enjoy that part, actually.
As much as Shatner's ego rules this movie, I guess I was slightly impressed that he let Spock save him at the beginning.
Yeah. And that's actually might be one of the best action sequences in the movie is...
Oh, the special effects when he's falling are so awful.
Oh, they are.
Okay, so yeah, that kind of set the stage for me already. I was like, "What? All right, so what's happening here with the effects?" But I couldn't help but wonder back then, or back on the big screen, would it have been so clear? Would the picture have been so clear that we would have noticed the effects?
I think so.
And also, I'm trying to think of how accustomed we would have been to better effects by that point. Would it have been as glaring?
So I can't speak for everybody, but I know I was watching a lot of movies on VHS from the library at this point in my life. So to me, it didn't look worse than other things at that point. But yeah, I think it was obviously bad. So was everything else.
I think because I feel like the previous 4 movies were pretty good effects.
Yeah.
And so I think that step down is the issue, that it went backwards. So, because I think your higher end movies that your Batman, also came out that summer. Batman, Ghostbusters 2, again, Indiana Jones, whatever, were much better. And so, they just weren't even adequate, And again, I think for someone who's like, oh, I just watched Next Gen last Saturday or last night, and I'm watching this movie today in theater, and I'm spending money, and this is much worse. Yeah, I mean, it's probably not wasn't as glaring then as it is now, but I know in the reviews it was definitely touched on.
Oh, okay.
Well, Next Gen, you're watching it on a smaller, blurrier TV seat.
That's true, too.
Appreciate all the effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those things factor in.
I think you make a point, Stephen. If you're going to the movies a lot, you would notice it. If you're watching home movies on VHS a bunch, not so noticeable.
That's true.
So the context is important.
Although, and one of my first notes, I think, was about the shuttles ended up looking worse and worse. And we're watching Next Gen. I'm watching it on the same screen. And the next gen effects look much better, you know.
Well, maybe they were remastered though too. Who knows?
That's true too.
When I say things like that, though, it makes me think of when I was a little kid and say like Clash of the Titans, for example. I cannot, for the life of me, get my head back into the space where I must have been at the time because I don't remember it. Like if you look at any like random scene of like the owl or any of the claymation or anything now, it just looks so glaringly, jagged and awkward.
Well,
I didn't feel that at the time. I can't like understand why.
I think that gets you give it some leeway because it's Ray Harryhausen and it's all that stop action, Jason and the Argonauts kind of effects. And then they, but I think even then people were like, well, it's not really an update, but you're still like, I think there's a nostalgia element even then to like, well, it's Ray Harryhausen. That's what he's been doing for 30 years or whatever. But yeah, to watch it now.
Well, but my point is I didn't feel that kind of critical, what is that? Getting up.
I was more bothered by the fact McCoy managed to get from his far away distance all the way to where Kirk was really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did they beam him there?
He just started running. Obviously, they didn't beam him there because the teleporters weren't working. So
the teleporters.
He started running as soon as he just saw Spock arrive.
Even so, he has to be like running as fast as a $6 million man. Like, there's no way he gets there so quickly. Or Kirk was falling very, very slowly.
Or he was falling at an angle. You saw Spock kind of do that little rotation in the air and start flying down toward him. So as he's holding him and hovering up, his body is still sort of horizontal, and his boots are pointing, horizontally, like the booster rockets. But he's still hovering in the same place in midair. So later on, we see him using the belt that he's wearing, where it seems, and it even mentions the fact that the boots are there to just sort of boost, to add some acceleration to whatever is happening. So my conclusion was that with the belt itself was some sort of hover device,
anti-gravity belt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's a catchy name. Why didn't I think of that? Yeah.
Why didn't Kirk just wear one of those to climb?
Because he is strong like ox.
You would think you wear one just as a safety precaution, right?
I guess that goes back to the whole free solo thing, because those guys don't use anything, which is insane. One, climbing a mountain's insane to me. Two, climbing it without any safety precautions is entirely insane.
That's what Bones was lecturing about.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a scene I've never actually seen because it was deleted, but the opening of Star Trek Generations, Kirk's first scene. And they made an action figure from this scene, even though they cut it from the movie and didn't put it in, was him skydiving from the upper atmosphere and circling the globe 3 times before he lands. I feel like that was very reminiscent of this.
It's hard for me to believe that it's real life, that a person could get to the point where they could feel that these are realistic demands to put this. I mean, it feels like one of the comedy sketches you would write about an actor who has lost perspective. And as I want to do all these other things, and it's like a movie within a movie, them doing something crazy,
Yep.
But
so back to the movie. We go back to Nimbus 3 here at this point. This is before the campfire scene. And there's a water pool table, which I thought was interesting looking.
That became a lot deeper a little bit later in the
I thought that was a different table that was deeper.
Same
later.
table. I was like,
same table?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. I mean, there were balls in that water too that she was in. My only thought is that maybe the table was a little more sophisticated than we would. I mean, story wise, the way that it worked, it could have either changed depth, or the balls could have been hovering on the surface. You know what I'm saying, or like skimming the top as opposed to whatever.
I'm with Marianne. I think it was just ridiculous.
Yes,
but I like all the aliens. It did feel like Mos Eisley Cantina.
Mm-hmm.
What the 3-boobed woman? If she was a cat, wouldn't she have like 8 boobs and it'd be like bing, 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 like this? I mean, wouldn't that be, to one up other people that are like, hey, she's got 3 boobs. Oh, that's just like that other movie. No,
I was gonna say
like
the other
boobs.
movie. Yeah,
yeah.
It was. I thought it was Mos Eisley Cantina, but also on a shoestring budget.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to learn anything about any of them, so. Honestly, not that we do in that scene either, but
I thought it was a little bit odd that St. John Talbot, David Warner's character, was smoking a cigarette. I liked it.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought it felt very odd for the 23rd century.
Have we seen many or any smoking characters in the continuum?
I don't think so. I'd be hard pressed to find any other smoking character in any of Star Trek. Other than in Discovery, there's like some drug smoking by Clint Howard and some others, but
well,
like
they've cured lung cancer by then, so although that would suggest more people would smoke. But
My thought when I saw this cat, it was a cat woman. They started from the feet and worked their way up. So there's this. It just seemed like seemed excessive to me, I guess.
They did a really good job on the tail.
We've got the stripes. We've got 3 breasts and a cat face, and it just kind of like they just kept kind of throw in more things to make her exotic. It's not the same sort of cat person as Maress, right?
Nope.
No.
Then we get the shot of the Enterprise. Was that the same shot from the last film where we go over the Excelsior and see?
I think I read that it was.
It looked like
some
it.
Stuff, yeah.
Especially because the Excelsior didn't figure into this movie at all. So it was weird they showed it. I thought it was also weird the Federation gave them a brand new ship and it's a mess.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem totally legit.
I heard it was a joke that the people that had the Excelsior had gone in and messed with stuff. Like the whole captain's log thing when he's an admiral and stuff.
That makes sense, given that they sabotaged the Excelsior. Scotty and Uhura are super friendly all of a sudden.
There's supposed to be a romance there, right?
They're what?
I mean, it's a romance. Isn't that what they're insinuating here?
Yes. Which
they certainly insinuated
it later.
No
hint of until now.
Right.
Yeah, I think and this is a Seinfeld part of the podcast. I don't know if you guys remember the episode where I can't remember why Elaine's not dating anyone or whatever, but they're talking about getting married or whatever, and Kramer's like, what do you say? He says, Elaine, what do you say in 10 years if neither one of us is married? We get hit. She's like, make it 50. He's like, you got a deal. We're engaged. So that's the way I thought of this, was they must have made some kind of deal like that. Maybe not, obviously not 50 years, but enough years into the future. It was like, all right, we're here. It's 30 years later.
Or maybe it's one of those situations where you just never see what's right in front of you until you do.
Oh, God.
I don't know. To me, honestly, when I used to play with my Star Trek figures, surprise, I played with them and made up stories. I make up stories on like Star Trek. I don't know where that never mind. But I always had Uhura and Scotty as a couple, and I guess now it must have been for this movie. It must have been.
That would make sense.
Huh.
I always thought of them as a couple, and I've somehow lost that in the last 20 years. I stopped thinking of them that way, but now I remember that I used to think of them that way.
And I did start trying in my mind to connect those two to be like, could that have worked? And because I guess, I mean, in my mind, Uhura is just like this amazing everything woman, and Scotty's just like, well, I'm going to put together, other than Wayne.
Star.
Yeah,
he's a super genius though.
You exactly said what I was trying. Yeah, because you're like, well, maybe she would end up with a Chekhov, or he's very whatever, or just somebody who's got more, or Kirk or whatever, whatever, however you want to do it. But
I mean, obviously, the new movies have chosen to pair with Spock, which makes the original series kind of like hinted at that once or twice.
Yeah, and as we've said, I wish they would have developed that, but. Yeah, it's just different. It's weird.
I would call them like what nowadays terms are calling like it's a platonic couple.
Yeah.
They,
spend all their time together.
They're, I have friends that I hug and kiss and, all that stuff. And it's no big deal.
It didn't seem like that at the end.
Too far. Yes.
Yeah.
When she was brainwashed by Cybok. It was, I was like, no, I don't buy that at all.
I think you're right, Marianne. I think that relationship you started with makes more sense, but I think the way it developed, I was totally getting that. Nope, they're in a relationship.
They were like, she was like, I've got lunches for us because I know you work too hard. I know you were working too hard.
The way she was touching his face also was like,
none
of my platonic friends touched me that way.
No.
Okay, two things.
Not anymore.
And Steven won't let me touch him anymore.
Did Shatner?
At that point, they're not platonic.
Let's talk about the better couple, Sulu and Chekhov.
Yeah.
Lost in the woods together.
Yeah.
And they were supposed to be climbing the Mount McKinley. Mount Rushmore with the face of a Black American president on it.
Oh, really?
Yes, a Black female American president.
That would have been great.
But they got lost, or it was cut.
But they didn't have the money to do it. So they're like, put it in Yosemite too.
So I guess I always thought that like fake snowstorm was so they wouldn't have to go back to work. I didn't get until this watch that it was them trying to pretend they weren't lost and get Uhura to give them directions without revealing.
Yeah.
That makes it so much better.
It was very cute.
It was very
I
funny.
remember laughing really hard in the movie theater about that one.
And, Colleen and I talked about it. I think, because we all love Star Trek 4, and I think those humorous aspects are great. And I think they nail those in this. And to Shatner's credit and the screenwriter's credit, I thought they nailed all those. It's just, there was some cheesiness, but a lot of it was genuinely laugh out loud funny because these guys and you love them. And it worked great in 4, and it works great here.
Well, then we get back to our throuple, who is also a well-oiled relationship, in my opinion. And Bones is making his old Southern bean recipe with his secret ingredient of whiskey. Which I totally bought.
Is that a thing where you can taste whiskey? I mean, you put it in so much that I can't imagine.
The point of it is it would add some sort of flavor. It doesn't necessarily mean it's alcoholic, but it's something that
you cook it
that Spock would. But what's the point of putting it at all?
You cook it out,
really?
Especially if you put enough in there,
yeah.
Oh.
The point is, it's a flavor that Spock wouldn't have been familiar with. Not that it's like, oh my god, this is.
Yeah.
Then Kirk says, "I've always known I'll die alone," and so that felt odd to me. It felt, I'm not sure why Shatner put that in or what the point of that was.
So he can set up those later on.
Yeah, the callback.
That's why.
Yeah,
but he was never really alone.
Awesome line.
But he was
and Marianne, you're exactly right. It just felt like foreshadowing. It didn't feel like I'm a lonely guy, and it didn't. If it had called back to his "I'm married to my ship" and all that jive, and obviously he's ruined relationships with all these great women, then I would have been like, okay, I feel that. But no, it was definitely very like, oh, this is going to come back into play later. I get it.
Yeah, definitely.
When I remember this line being discussed a lot when we got to Kirk's actual death a couple films later.
Mm-hmm.
He is alone in the sense that everybody he knew and loved is far away from him or dead. A couple of them are still alive through fate and circumstance, but they're not near him. But he's not alone because Picard's there when he dies. So I don't know. I feel like it was just something he said, and it wasn't a real prophecy.
Well, there's a couple of
Donnie Darko line, every living creature dies alone. So I thought that's what he was referring to, is that we all die alone.
No, he's referring to Donnie Darko.
Yes.
No, I mean, it's very much, well, a couple of things. First of all, I jokingly noted that Kirk acknowledged his plot armor by saying that I knew I wasn't going to die, that kind of thing. Yeah, I couldn't possibly die in these circumstances. Secondly, it's if you are writing yourself to be a badass character, that is one of the things you would put in there to say, yeah, man, I'm going to die alone. I'm a lone wolf. I'm, I don't need anybody. It's just that's what I felt like it kind of was, that kind of posturing. But it did seem apparent by the end when it did come back, like as a callback.
Yeah.
They were just trying to set that up. And
it's a very Rambo Schwarzenegger kind of thing, which the 80s were. And which leads, so I'll jump to this note real quick and get out of it. This felt the most 80s of all of the 5 Trek films for me. It just felt the most of its time. Like even Voyage Home, which is in 1986 San Francisco, still doesn't feel as 80s as this does. And I think that part of it is because those movies transcend time because they're really good. But they're very, I just felt, and the effects obviously play into that, but it definitely had an 80s feel, and the Mad Max stuff and all that.
It's an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing to think about, like the sort of like the delay of things, what we come to think of as being the 80s, because this was like right at the end, right? So it's like 80s had reached peak 80s at that point, and it was still going to bleed into the 90s. Which is kind of something that just happens. But back in the actual like early to mid 80s, you were still probably bleeding in the 70s, and it just kind of.
Well, we were still waiting. It was still 2 years till Nirvana. Nevermind came out, and that's, in my mind, that's when the 80s finally ended. And I celebrated by jumping in mosh pits, but that's a different podcast. But
something I would never do again. But
me either, because the first time I did it, I thought I got my tooth knocked out. So.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I was stupid. I wasn't even drinking then.
The dichotomy of them acting tough, but then they're not afraid to show their bromance is nice.
Yes.
And I like the fact that they're still vacationing together even when they're off duty and they can't get enough of one another.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point in their life, having spent so many years together, I know we haven't seen it all on screen, but they did 3 5-year missions plus some extra stuff together. That's a lot. That would bond you. Okay, now we get to the marshmallow dispenser.
Marshmallow?
The most impractical of inventions ever. They actually sold them as merchandising. It was a merchandise tie-in.
The dispenser?
Yeah, this dispenser.
My guess is it wasn't really supposed to be a marshmallow dispenser in and of itself, but some other sort of canister that he just grabbed for the purpose of preserving it and keeping it safe.
To bring like 3 marshmallows.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's probably meant to hold other things, and they probably didn't have like Ziploc bags, unfortunately.
No, it was totally a replicator.
You think
in
it
my
was a
head,
replicator?
It's a marshmallow replicator.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's not the way
it only does that.
They portrayed it, but so they Kraft sold this, and it's branded, unfortunately, with a big Kraft logo and Star Trek V written on it. So it's not just
calling Spock a green-blooded Vulcan. Good to see he's still specious. I mean, he never calls anybody else a red-blooded human.
Yeah.
Although I guess that is something people used to say.
Americans.
A red-blooded American, yes.
Then we get to probably the most famous scene in the movie where they sing "Row, row, row your boat."
Yes.
Which is a great scene, but
awkward.
I object to Kirk saying, "I love that song." Like that's a song he just adores.
I think
it feels like a song that you picked because you didn't have a budget. Song to sing.
Same with Camptown Races.
Yeah. Can we afford Camptown Races? No, honestly, that's still a little bit too rich. I think we need to go back to.
No, honestly, the other couple of songs they named before "Row, Row Your Boat" are better songs than "Row, Row, Row Your Boat," in my opinion.
Yeah, and they do mention "Moon Over Rigel 7," so they did throw one modern one. But I asked Colleen the question, of course, as I always do on here. Are people? I was like, "Do you even know Camptown Races?" She's like, "I know a couple lines." I'm like, "Yeah, so everyone does." But
Camptown Races.
Is anyone going to know what 300 years
and
from now?
sued?
400? Yeah, 300 years from now. Is anyone going to? Is there any possibility anyone's going to be singing that?
Probably.
We'll never know.
I mean, do kids know "Row Your Boat"? They probably do.
Yeah. They know.
I am well versed in all. Remember, Spock is well versed in all forms of, poetry and stuff. So he might.
But he's never heard of it.
Classics.
Spock never heard of it. They have to teach him.
He knows Macefield, but he doesn't know row your boat. That doesn't make any sense.
All right, well, my thought on that is I think that they chose it to, again, force the deepness of. Well, the song is supposed to be about like just living until you die, essentially, right?
I know. I think for Kirk to say "I love that song" was to goad Spock into singing along with him.
Yes,
that's all
I think you're right.
Maybe
that was like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite song, and Spock would be like, oh, that's my captain's, my friend's favorite song.
Okay, but to finish my thought, what I was saying is I think that they were trying to shoehorn the philosophy of what was going on in the song into the rest of the plot, or at least calling that as a plot point. And then also, it's something that it requires a certain type of cooperation between the 3 parts. To start off the round, and then it kind of highlights Spock's otherness in that trio.
After the campfire, we meet the other antagonist of the film, the shirtless Klingon, Captain Claw, played by Todd Bryant.
Was it an open vest?
For doing stunts. He did stunts for The Matrix and for Daddy's Home, and for Daddy's Home 2.
I liked his presumably first officer, or at least the other more prevalent Klingon, the woman on the bridge with him.
So
they coordinated with the sleevelessness.
That was Vixis, played by Spice Williams Crosby, who's best known for this role. She was also in Duke, which is, assuming based on the poster, a John Wayne movie from 2016.
I think she did a lot of stunts too.
They're both stunt people. Yeah. That's what they're known for. She was Shirley MacLaine's stunt double in a movie a couple years ago.
Terms of Endearment, I think.
This is Terms of Endearment 2.
This time it's personal.
Now, Spice Williams Crosby will also do stunts in an episode of Deep Space Nine, so she comes back in Star Trek. And
I thought maybe she was related to Denise Crosby, right?
Oh,
away.
I don't know.
I don't think she was, though.
Oh.
And Todd Bryant did stunts for Star Trek Nemesis. So they're both still active years later.
Nice.
I liked them-ish. I don't know.
Yeah, that's
nice
a
to add
perfect
one more element in.
Yeah, that's a perfect breakdown. I like them-ish. I agree.
I thought it was, so I do think another example of them saving budget, it looked like they used the same Klingon bridge from the last movie, just lit differently.
Yep.
I feel like they were shoehorned in.
You think they were shoehorned?
Yeah, it was just like, we need some reason why we can't teleport Kirk back up.
Right.
So they're like, let's put in this plot line of this guy trying to kill Kirk the whole time.
Well, there's also the whole thing with their ship not working right was another plot point that seemed to be shoehorned in to use shuttles and other things.
I wrote that too. It's like, oh, hey, it's another new and understaffed Enterprise. Wow, we haven't done this one yet.
Right.
Yeah, you have. Yes, you have.
It also gave the Klingon ambassador something to do because he hadn't done anything while the other two had. Although, why did the humans and the Klingons both send rescue ships, but the Romulans didn't?
Again,
didn't need to.
You guys know I'm a Romulan person, and I think that's probably a budget thing. But I would have much rather seen a bird of prey. You guys know this, but
there was a bird of prey.
Wrong bird of prey.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting choice in this film, and in this film alone, they didn't subtitle the Klingons.
Oh, yeah.
What?
They didn't subtitle the Klingons when they were speaking Klingon?
They did. I had subtitles.
I watched it on Blu-ray, and there were no subtitles.
Oh, on Hulu, there were subtitles.
They had subtitles.
Interesting.
Wow.
I do love that Klingon theme that Jerry Goldsmith made for the first motion picture. I think that's very distinctive. I do always like that. And they have really great intel. They knew everything that was going on. The Klingons' intel is really good.
I thought that the characters worked for the purpose of what they were doing. They needed to kind of move. I need to think this through for a second here, but I mean, at the time, it made sense that you want to have a sort of like a proud Klingon stereotype to help bolster the fame of Kirk. The name of Kirk is like he knew immediately who it was. This is going to be a huge prize. It's kind of talking him up from the past, but potentially an ego boost. A cynical person might say for the Shatner's character of Kirk, but
which again, I think that works better for the Romulans because Balance of Terror and Enterprise incident, Kirk does these terrible things to them.
The Romulan ambassador. Yeah, I had mixed feelings about the betrayal.
Me too.
But it eventually grew on me to the extent that I thought about it. I think that is one of the things that Star Trek ironically gets wrong in the sense of the point is to promote diversity and humanize all these different kinds of cultures and so forth. But for the most part, when you get like a Romulan or a Klingon, we're only ever seeing the military aspect of them. So they're going to all seem a certain way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I thought, well, it might make sense if you have a Romulan ambassador, especially a new one, that she might be young and idealistic and perky or something. But I guess
the Romulans are always thinking 8 steps ahead.
Yeah, that's actually
disarming to have a character like that.
Yeah, young and perky is a good point because in my mind, obviously I wrote. You guys might be surprised by this, and none of the listeners of this show. No, she's no Joanne Linville. But that makes sense that she wouldn't be because Joanne Linville was a commander and had been around longer, was an older woman. But I still have kind of mixed emotions about her too. And I was also completely bothered the entire time that I could not see her ears. She had that thing. And so this, again, goes back to cost.
Ear budget, yeah.
They didn't want to spend the time and money with her getting her ears put on every day because they were already putting on all the other makeup. But for her, the lucky thing was she got to sit next to Nimoy in makeup, getting hair and makeup. And so she got to hang out with Nimoy for that. But
the one thing that I thought was unforgivable, as far as that was, there was some shot when they were on the whatever the end planet was. I can't remember what that's called right now.
Nimbus 3? Oh, no, the end planet.
Shakara.
That's right.
Shakari.
That's what Cybok called it.
Yes.
They
wanted Sean Connery to be Cybok originally.
Yeah.
They all had different names for it.
Yeah, there was some sort of explosion or some sort of thing that happened down on the surface, and they cut back to her to do a little reaction shot. And I was like, come on.
And like I said, I think she had at least one scene and maybe 2 scenes that ended up on the cutting room floor, which maybe would have helped develop her a little more, but
Flesh her out a bit.
yeah, but it did not happen.
So I'm reviewing some of the Klingon scenes from Star Trek V on YouTube, and I do see in the scene where they cloak to attack the Enterprise, there's subtitles, and maybe there were when I watched it, but the scene where they blew up the satellite, the first scene we see them, there were no subtitles, and there aren't in the YouTube version either.
That shot where they blow up V'ger, I wrote down they blow up V'ger. I wrote at the time, man, that was a terrible effect, and then later I wrote, oh wait, that's the entire movie is the same way.
Well, I can tell you the gist of what they said, which was essentially we found another one. Okay, now we get to have some target practice. It's a small thing, and blah blah blah, and then just this is great and all, but I want something more challenging than shooting space trash.
Yeah, none of that was on my screen.
Oh well, yeah. Then eventually it comes across. Oh, there's this thing happening on this planet. I've always wanted to engage in a Federation starship. Let's go. Maximum speed.
That makes sense, but I got the gist of it even without subtitles, so I'm not sure it was necessary.
It's because you have it ingrained in your mind, Jimmy. You've watched it so many times. That's how you were shipping Scotty and Uhura together before you even knew it.
Yeah.
You had seen it.
I could very well be. I think there was a lot of body language and stuff that made it clear enough.
Yeah. Oh, they try to foil me by taking away all the subtitles, but you see, it didn't matter because I'd already seen it.
I'd already seen them all.
Back to the campsite. At least Kirk, Spock, and McCoy practiced responsible campsite cleanup before they left on the ship. I appreciated that. That had to have been purposeful. They cleaned it up and put out the fire. Then we get Kirk on the ship, and he says another one of the best lines from this movie. There's a bunch of quotable lines from this movie, but
There are.
all I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. Love that. Love that line.
You guys already know my favorite line. The only one I remember.
We'll get to that. Did you notice the shuttle they took back up from the campsite was the Galileo?
Yeah, Galileo. So is it the Galileo 5 or it's just the ship 5?
I don't know. It was shuttle number 5.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. The terminal
other one was
not opening on the bridge was a funny moment.
Yeah.
Whatever you think of the disrepair.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of slapstick kind of comedy in it with doors not opening, people running into things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, the Scotty one actually made me laugh out loud. Now, this stuff doesn't usually appeal to me quite as much, but just the timing of that was so perfect. With I know the ship like the back of my hand, and this immediately, yeah. That's one of those things where I'm torn because it's really funny, and I definitely remember that as that bit from being a child and thinking it was funny. But on the other hand, Scotty's not a bumbling idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And I mean, to the extent that he was like really knocked out. It wasn't just like a little temporary thing.
He had
It was
a
like
gash on his head. He was bleeding.
Yeah.
What do we think of the new yeoman in this movie? Played by Melanie Shatner.
Melanie Shatner, yeah.
Who you may know as from her role as little brunette girl in Miri, or a jogger in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
Huh.
She also has 21 other credits, including Bloodlust Subspecies 3 and Bloodstone Subspecies 2.
I will say this is one of my fashion notes. Shatner's toupee, amazing in this movie. And then her hair is also amazing. In fact, to the point that I said to Colleen, that hair is amazing. And she concurred. It was, I don't know if it was a wig or not, but it was amazing. And then I didn't realize till the end of the movie, oh, that's Melanie Shatner.
Yeah. It is William Shatner's daughter, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
From his first marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, not our first time in Star Trek. She didn't have any lines, but she was around a lot.
She had a lot of FaceTime. She was very much like Carrie Fisher's daughter in
Billy Lord.
Couple Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like
So
Billy Lord.
she was bringing him a drink or something, right, at the beginning when he first came on the bridge?
She actually is his coat waiting, which I thought was pretty impressive. But yeah, I thought she served the purpose. I guess it's hard to really judge her one way or the other without any plot or dialogue.
I thought she would have more to do, but I thought that about a lot of people in this movie. Yeah. What is the room with the nautical wheel? Can somebody
It's a
help me?
lounge for them to hang out in, I guess. I liked that set.
Is it like the 10 forward of the...
I thought it was like a fast forward.
Yeah.
I attempted to call it steerage, but that's probably not what it was.
No, I love that set. That's
I did too.
The only new set in this movie.
Yeah.
It did make me. It did make me want to ask, or if that actually did come up later in other Star Trek movies later or something, or if this is a call forward to something. But I guess not.
I don't think so. I think it was just a cool set.
Maybe it's like the conference room that Picard has, and it has like the ship in it, the golden ship. And maybe Shatner saw that and was like, I need something like that in the Enterprise.
Well, there was no conference table in it, but we know the Enterprise has multiple lounges. In the Enterprise D, 10 forward's one of several budget or lounges. So, what, Marianne?
I said, you can't afford a conference table on that budget. You just got to deal with like the gold steering wheel, and then you're good.
Kirk was on a standing desk kick.
Yeah. Yes.
Then here's another thin plot when they send the Enterprise after them. The Enterprise in its terrible state. And like, we've got other ships. Of course we do, because we just saw the Excelsior. Right. We've got other ships, but no, the other ships don't have Jim Kirk. Okay.
That is definitely
maybe they could give him a ride or something.
What about this situation demanded Jim Kirk? This was just a run-of-the-mill situation as far as they were concerned.
It's just such a it's just that. Well, why are you putting him on this shuttle ship? Well, we have to have Kirk. But yeah, like you said, Keith, why would they just put him on a good ship?
Or if there was some hint that Sybok was asking for Spock or something.
Right.
If there wasn't, it was just really thin.
That would have been a good idea.
Like you said, or like I just said, the Excelsior was right there. We saw it. So maybe they still haven't fixed it from Scotty's sabotage. I don't know. I like the Kirk missing his old chair. I feel like that was a Shatner line.
Yeah. Especially when he was like rocking it. Like you could tell it was still kind of like definitely the people from the Excelsior had like loosened some of the bolts on that chair just to stick it to Kirk.
Oh, Stephen, we skipped away from fashion too quickly. I like.
Okay, I have more fashion things.
Yeah. Let's stay on fashion from fashion part 2. I like the Klingon outfits. I really like Scotty's vest with all his utility pockets. I think we saw that in a previous movie, but it wasn't as built out.
It didn't have as many pockets on it as.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had a lot of pouches and a lot of doodads hanging off of it, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was like Batman's utility belt.
Nichelle Nichols makes gray look good was one of my fashion notes.
True.
True. It's just like, okay, yeah, that's
and feathers.
And the feathers.
I have a note on that too. While we're there, Colleen's and I'd heard tell of this scene. And of course, I'm down with her dancing. Colleen, this is one of her interjections was, "Oh, that's great. One woman on the crew, and this is where they objectify her, so they can do whatever they need to do."
And then they left her. She didn't get to like go attack the city. She had to wait in the shuttle.
Right.
It was very sexist.
Exactly,
well, she wasn't dressed for it.
Neither were
she
they.
She has 2 feathers, and that's it.
Did she really though? We never saw for sure if she was naked. She may have still been clothed.
I was looking very hard to see what she was wearing. Trust me. It was very little.
And do we know if it was Nichelle actually doing the because her legs looked amazing on the close-up shots.
She did the dancing.
I wouldn't dispute that.
This is one of my things I looked up for trivia. Was she did the dancing and the singing, but then they dubbed in a different singer at the end, even though she is a well-renowned singer.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did know that, and that sucks.
That was and they didn't tell her that either. So when she went to the movie, and it's not her voice.
My thinking on that was it was some sort of budgetary concern because it would be really hard to capture that level of singing outside from what they were doing.
They have her dub it in.
I know that Marianne said the same thing, and yes, you should do that, but it was probably some last minute thing where like, we can't fix this. Let's bring somebody in. Maybe they didn't want to pay her more. I don't know.
I don't think there's no excuse for that, in my opinion.
Nope.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I'm just saying this is probably their reasoning. I'm not saying it's good, but
when this movie came out, I knew I liked David Bowie at the time. So I knew I was heterosexual. But then when Uhura danced, I found out I liked women. So
really?
There you go, folks.
So half that was similar to my life. While we're on fashion, I asked Colleen about this. I think she agreed with me. So the designer, they designed special camping clothes kind of for them. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. But I wrote, so there is absolutely no development in jeans over the next several hundred years.
Jeans and flannel shirts, they stay the same.
Shatter's jeans, Kirk's jeans are the same jeans I was wearing then. Except, or maybe, sorry, they're the same jeans my dad was wearing then. It's like you guys couldn't come up with something just a little different.
Spock seeing Cybok acting like he's seen a ghost, that seemed a little odd.
How so?
I don't know, like, I just feel like Spock wouldn't have showed himself so shaken. Mm-hmm. Either he was going to show something or not, and I don't know. It felt odd to me.
Did he actually think he was dead? Was that?
No.
I think it was, right?
As far as he knew, he had been banished because he was encouraging Vulcans to follow emotion.
Interesting and not surprising that Spock was more shaken and concerned about his brother than Kirk was about his dead brother in Operation Annihilate.
Yeah, so this is skipping ahead a minute, but at one point in this movie, Kirk mentions, I have brother. I know what you mean. I have brother. And I'm like, yeah, you're dead brother. Yeah, and he's like, he's Spock and McCoy. Yeah. What? Wait. You're not even going to mention George?
Yeah, I was just like,
So one of the things that bothered me about that, the brother relationship, is it seemed like the reason why they did it was simply so they could do that big reveal about why Spock didn't shoot him, as if that needed to be the reason why. First, it seems odd to me how Kirk was just so shoot him. What is wrong with you? Why didn't you kill this guy when you had this whole thing? And then, since he's your brother, I guess that's okay.
I think Spock would have shot him. I mean, I'm not going to say shoot to kill, but I think Spock would have shot him.
Right. I think he would have. What was the logical thing to do? Right. Stun him or something. And
we don't know if that gun had a stun setting, but shoot him in the leg.
That's true.
Shoot him in the leg.
Yeah. It just didn't.
Arm.
It was not logical. And I don't care who showed up. It wouldn't be enough to dissuade Spock from doing the logical thing.
Especially not with Kirk's life in the balance and the ship. And the ship, everybody on the ship. Spock would not just give up that ship.
He left Jill Ireland behind on a planet in this side of paradise. If he used logic there, he's going to use logic here. I don't care. You can't dissuade me from that opinion either. Well, maybe you can, but probably not. But.
We skipped a few minutes, so I'm going to jump backwards here. Sure. Captain Chekhov. I enjoyed Captain Chekhov.
Oh, that was so cute.
I do want to know what Chekhov's role is on the Enterprise, because he was first officer of the Reliant. And I get why he was still hanging out with them in 3 and 4, but shouldn't he have moved on to something else by now? He's not first officer of the Enterprise. Did he really take a demotion to stay on the ship?
Just to hang out with his buddies, yeah.
Seems that way.
Yeah, that doesn't totally gel for me.
No. Well, that's what real life would probably be like, but for the world of one of these, for the as you said, like the Kirk-centric world of what is happening there, they're all there to be as supporting.
Well, maybe I think you could explain that we went through something really big together, and now he just doesn't want to leave. But because there was no explanation, I don't know.
Maybe he's like the mascot.
A single line.
In 4, where he fell and knocked got his head bumped. I'm sure that probably they didn't fix him totally. So that's why they're like, oh, just keep him on the Enterprise. He'll be all right.
So we have the line, Spock be one with the horse, which then Spock says, hold your horse, Captain. Again, goes back to the gravity joke. Spock's making these puns constantly.
But speaking of Chekhov, and once Cybok came and started sort of brainwashing them, for lack of a better term, my first thought was, oh God, not. I mean, first of all, in Khan, with the earworm thing, it seemed kind of unfair to do this to him again. But
I thought this was a similar device. Yeah.
As they started going through it, I realized that they made it at least slightly more complex than just, yes, we will do whatever you say now, no questions asked. It was just a more simple kind of.
I don't know how unleashing your pain makes you a slave that worships him.
Nope. I didn't get it.
It didn't exactly. That was the thing. It was sort of like they were. It kind of did, but it didn't.
It was a very Scientology thing. I wrote, is he L. Ron Cybok? Because that's, and I cannot say that I know Scientology tenets backwards and forwards, but I think that's definitely part of it is, if you have to know your pain to be able to release it and move on with your life, and then.
But see, even if he helped unlock something within those Enterprise crewmen, you heard of Scotty, Sulu, Chekhov, they weren't going to turn on Kirk. They might go talk to Kirk and be like, "Hey, we think you should give this guy a chance."
Right.
But they're not just going to be like, "No, we're cool with him being in the brig and Cybok being captain."
Right.
That is my biggest problem with the movie.
Yeah.
In the original script, they had Spock and Bones turning against the captain, and they all said, no, this wouldn't happen. And so William Shatner had to go back and say, I agree, this wouldn't happen, so we need to change it.
Yeah.
But they didn't fix everything else as a result of it.
Say McCoy did kind of turn until Spock said no, and then McCoy's like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm not going to turn then either."
And
is that how brainwashing works?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said.
If your best buddy doesn't turn, you don't have to.
It's something. I think that's what I was saying. It's something. It seemed a little more complex, but thinking through it, it's probably just an accident. It was something that they kind of half fixed, and they
Kirk being a hero that he's like, "Nope, don't show me. I'm good."
Right.
I'm not. I'm going to be the one person on the crew that's not brainwashed.
It's a device of it's a device of convenience for sure, and it makes sense that he could brainwash the simpletons, for lack of a better term, which is like Dark Knight, where the Joker preys on the sick and I can't think of his whole line, but
Scotty didn't get brainwashed, if you remember.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't go to the Jedi mind trick thing.
Oh, that too. Yeah, it's very much along those lines too. Yep. And but that said, I think it's a device for obviously with the plot along, but I thought the McCoy scene was powerful myself, and I have personal reasons to be connected to that, but I thought it was actually that was really well played. It could have been really silly, dramatic, like a TOS kind of over the top kind of thing, but I thought that was one of the few scenes where I'm like, geez, this is really effective, and I thought that scene worked really well.
McCoy's father, played by Bill Quinn, who's best known for Twilight Zone the movie and The Birds, as well as
this was his last.
This was his last role,
But I thought that
he was in Archie Bunker's place as Mr. Van Rensselaer.
So it would have been great to have another scene where it's the Kirk thing. I feel like as soon as they talked to Kirk, in my mind, it was like, well, it's going to be Eve, or it's going to be
Carol Marcus,
or
David. This would be a great time.
Or David. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
David's death.
And it was. It's weird to me to not go there, other than the
hero needs to overcome, not just opt out.
Yeah, I agree.
So Spock's flashback, I don't know. Did anybody else find it a little bit flat and hollow?
Yes.
When I saw this in the movie theater, I asked my mom afterwards, like, what was the big deal? And she had to explain, like, this is, he's so, Sarek is so Vulcan that he was like, he's crying because he's a little baby. How dare these babies cry?
I'll never forget my dad, the day I came home from the hospital, he was the same way. I remember it like it was a long time ago.
Exactly.
No, it doesn't make sense.
Are they saying that he had sentience enough to remember the scene, even though it wasn't from his eyes, it was from someone over here?
Well, and I think...
Yeah, so how did they all see each other's scenes?
Right.
I wondered about that, but I
and that's
forgot
certainly
somehow.
Something that we didn't go through with any other characters until then.
Nope.
And again, if you use it as
a... seeing the no-tooth guys, whatever.
Yeah. If the idea is BS, monkeys don't fly, and it's like they're showing us presentationally, rather, even though it's actually a conversation they're having, okay, although that's completely different from what they've done before. But the other thing for me with Spock and that whole storyline of his father never fully accepting him is we've got this history of all these moments that are more affecting, one, about that, and two, them having some kind of resolution in Journey to Babel. But, Yesteryear deals with his childhood, Journey to Babel, he talks about it in The Naked Time, and I know I'm missing a couple more episodes where Spock talks about, dealing with being, half human Vulcan, on Vulcan, and all that stuff, and much more effectively, much more moving than this, and that's disappointing. And so it's like, either come up with something better or just don't bother with it and give us something from Kirk or whatever. But yeah, it's as much as I love Spock, it's well-worn territory, and they've just done it better.
And why? I mean, I get you. they probably didn't want to do age makeup and stuff, but I sure as heck missed Mark Leonard in that scene. If you're going to do that scene,
yes,
and Jane Wyatt,
anything at that point, I was like, you just got some hot guy to be Sarek here, and didn't even try to make him look like.
I'd have preferred they live action something from yesteryear than do that because
Kirk wrestling in the courtyard. Okay, so this is the scene where they storm the compound in Paradise City. It was just silly. Spock neck pinching a horse. Silly. The strike team
missed that.
The Starfleet strike team with shields made me uncomfortable because of current Black Lives Matter protests.
Yes, it did.
Like, Starfleet's the police. That's not good. Now I'm not
felt
on their
the same
side
way.
anymore. Now I want Starfleet to lose. Why did they even do the strike? Why couldn't they have negotiated? Isn't there a better way to handle that situation than just going guns blazing?
And Cybok even said, "What's happening? I didn't want there to be bloodshed."
Right.
It's like, how did this happen? How did we get this far into it with Cybok not realizing what was happening?
Right. So
to me, is just Kirk being a bad leader.
Yes. But that's blasphemy to me. But yes, that's another problem with this movie. But yes, like, why wouldn't you go in with overwhelming force? Why not send two? Why not send 2 starships? Here's an idea. Send 2 starships and have Kirk be in charge of it.
I think you throw the dead cat lady in the water. Like,
And what killed her? It was just sort of like she was just maybe you just one body slam and she was out. I guess I don't know.
It felt like a Western where there's a fight in the saloon and everyone gets thrown around.
Out the window and you're out.
Yeah.
As much as I hated all that, and this may seem odd, I did like Cybok's line at the end of, "I can't surrender now. I'm not through violating neutral zone treaty."
I like my sex tape.
You mentioned the thing about Cybok, like, it seems like he lost control. It's like, what is going on? Later on in the movie, and this makes me think that maybe this had to do with parts that had been cut out. Since you guys mentioned that, I hadn't even considered that possibility. When they were on the ship, and this was after Spock had refused to shoot Cybok. And he's like, okay, let's go to the bridge. And Spock, I guess, says, "I'm not going with you. I'm refusing to do it," right? So Cybok says, "I'm right." And then moves on. And I'm like, I was confused at that point, trying to think, did they explain what he's talking about here? And I actually had to back up the movie a while and start scanning through to figure out what conversations have they been having about any of this. And there hadn't been any indication that I could see about him talking about where he was going or why.
No, but they talked about how Cybok had led this movement on the planet Vulcan, and Spock didn't approve of that movement. So I assumed he's referring back to conversations they had years and years ago.
Which seems a little ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was that or about this God person's beyond the barrier or whatever.
So to crash into the shuttle, plan B is in barricade. And then Sulu's face when they're like, "Have you attempted this before?"
Oh, that was adorable.
I mean, I kind of felt like that was his attitude towards the movie at that point. Like, "Are you on board for this?" Whatever, I'm just doing what I'm told.
So shuttlecrafts had always been tractor beamed in?
Yeah.
I don't remember that prior to Next Gen.
Well, maybe that was a development after the original series.
But I feel like, to me, Sulu's, again, this is going to be a poor analogy, the Han Solo of the Star Trek universe. He's the helmsman. He can get through everything. And I guess that said, if it's never been done before, he did a pretty good job of landing it, I guess. But
the
I
other
wouldn't want him to land it
had,
perfectly. But
when they go in and they're crashing, the whole reaction, even Sulu had both arms up like this. I'm like, you are driving.
Not anymore.
Take the wheel.
At that point, they were crashing.
On the keyboard or whatever you have, keep them there. Do not flail them around.
He was doing the airplane thing. He was assuming crash position.
Yes.
So they're done crashing. They have the confrontation we already talked about. Why is McCoy put in the brig with Kirk? It's not like Cybok would be aware of the trio or their relationship.
Right.
He's just a doctor.
That's a good point.
Clearly he didn't lock up Sulu or Uhura. It makes no sense to me other than well, Kirk thinks he's one of the, or Shatner thinks he's one of the 3 leads, and he's ready.
Yeah.
It didn't feel realistic.
It does. Later they say they're going to do it by the book, which I guess means bad landing party decisions, where it's the captain, the first officer, and the chief medical officer. What? How is that by the, what book is this?
By Kirk's
book? Yeah, it's a Kirk book.
I wrote something similar. Well, not quite that, but something to the effect of, I really did like that somehow the movie turned into an episode at that point. It's like, well, we've got a standard away mission now. Let's just go do this.
Yep.
And it occurred to me then this could have happened a long time ago without a lot of the conflict if they had just asked something. I mean, we don't know what Sybok had tried to do with the Federation up to that point, why he was in that point. Did they explain how he got there and why he was stuck there to begin with?
No, he didn't explain why he was there. He'd just been kicked off of Vulcan, so who knows where his journey took him to get him to that point.
Huh.
I want to see that movie. Oh, that's my new alternate movie, but I have others, but that's my alternate movie now.
Sybok's backstory?
Yeah. I like Sybok.
Yeah, Kirk has finally given up and said, okay, let's go do this thing. We're here. And I thought, it would have stopped making sense at that point if he kept refusing anyway, because why wouldn't you want to go do this? You've just done something. You're in this unexplored territory. Maybe God is down there. This should have been a mission anyway for someone to do. But I don't know if he could have just gone to Starfleet and asked, hey, could somebody check out this theory?
Don't you think at some point in time, with as many times as Spock and Kirk and McCoy have met a god, they could have said something to Sybok and be like, taper your expectations, buddy. It might
Unless
not
she
be
sounds like Uhura, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
You should have talked to me, and I'd have been like, trust me, it's not a god. But he's going to test you. So I hope you're ready.
I hope you studied.
I do want to talk.
That question last night was for you, Stephen.
Oh,
yeah.
I want to mention.
I don't think he was there yet.
I might have missed that one.
The traditional god was played by George Murdoch.
Yes.
He was best known for this role, but he was also in Orange County, The X-Files, Breaker.
He also played the Russian novelist on Seinfeld. The marine biologist.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
He's got 200 acting credits. He's certainly been around a while. Yeah. That actor will return in The Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2 as the Admiral Hansen.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's a great character actor.
So that's
I didn't know it was him through all the stuff.
Through all the god-likeness?
Yeah. They reference Columbus. I can't reference Kirk or somebody before they go down.
Yeah, they said
that. I was like, why is it? Because you're explorers? I'm like, that has not aged well for sure. That's for sure.
Columbus made everybody figure out the world wasn't round. I was like, I don't think that was Columbus.
No, that used to be
reference Columbus because the Federation now takes advantage of native people and destroys them, and they went to this god's planet and they killed him. So, and we live in Columbus, and it makes me a little sad. All the people that want to change the name of the city, and then I'm like, yeah, well, we should.
I have one more shuttle thing while we've kind of jumped forward again.
Sure.
They're on the Copernicus going down to meet the godlike creature. Mm-hmm. There's a sound effect there that's going. I can't do it right, but it's the exact sound effect from 2001 when he's in the shuttle, and it's right before he goes to meet God or whatever. So it's a sound effect I've never heard in Star Trek before. But
the 2001, the Space Odyssey.
Yes.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I would direct anyone to compare the. I feel like they literally lifted that sound effect. They found that sound.
Well, yeah, they probably went on the internet and they were looking for royalty-free sound effects of meeting God, and they
knew somebody with the military who was able to get on the internet. And
so obviously the Galileo was a reference, throwback to the original series, the Galileo 7. The Copernicus was a shuttle in an animated series episode, The Slaver Weapon.
Oh, while we're on animated series, I have one. I never thought we would have 2 animated series references ever again. So as they're going down again to meet the godlike creature, there's this shot of Kirk and Spock and McCoy and their boots skidding across as they're going down the hill. It was just like in the animated series when they would show them running, and they would show all three of their feet going through. I was like, who is this Shatner's homage to the animated series? Is this like one shout out? Like, yeah, we got to throw this in. Or it was like, well, we can't show all of us skidding because we actually fell down immediately afterwards. I don't know.
Well, they also needed a shot of them just as silhouettes.
Yeah,
walking somewhere.
Right.
The Next Gen also had a Shuttle Copernicus in a season 1 episode, Coming of Age. So multiple Shuttle Copernicuses.
Nice.
When they're in the brig and Kirk stands on Spock's shoulders, that's an exact echo of an original series scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was interesting they got Spock to test the brig. I can't really find an issue with that, and yet it still felt a little weird to me.
I think it's because of how far they drug out the joke of that.
Mm.
Like the someone like this, someone with pointed ears. Yeah, just.
So Scotty knocks SOS. How many times did he repeat the pattern before he just blew open the wall?
Not enough. Not nearly
He knocked
enough.
a couple times and then started the pattern, I guess.
Yeah.
Stand back. Stand back.
Yeah, that was really weird.
My favorite part was when he don't you all see when there's a jailbreak happening? What are you doing? That was so funny.
So they get in the turbolift shaft, and Kirk and McCoy don't even notice Spock just walk out. Nobody looks behind them to see if he's following them up the shaft. Here's my biggest problem, or I already said what my biggest problem with the movie was, but something I think is just glaringly dumb is the deck numbers go up as they climb instead of down. The bridge is on deck 1. The numbers in the turbo lift shaft are wrong.
Well, it starts all over again once you get to.
Pretty sure, and this is from memory, so I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure I read sometime that the reason they did that was because they didn't think people would understand if they had them going down. Like it would confuse movie audiences. And yet, that just seems dumb. Dumb.
They should trust your movie audience. And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this goes to the problem, because I feel like I read some of this in there too. An issue, which is, whereas now we're in an era with Star Wars and many other IPs and intellectual properties where there's so much fan service. Whereas I feel like with Star Trek and those movies, the fan service is just the movies themselves.
Yeah.
And instead they were like, well, how do we appeal to the non-fans?
Yeah.
Which is, things have flipped now. So I feel like that was part of that. But just while we're on these, I thought there was that whole brother-brother conversation that they get into where the three of them are talking about brother and brother. I thought that was amusing. And even the Marx Brothers business they get into here in the elevator shaft and all that, I actually found, along with so many other things, I actually found those amusing, which, again, it is. There's a lot of fun elements to this movie. My last note on the shaft was, did anybody feel like it was a Willy Wonka illusion when they got to the top?
I did. I definitely did.
Even the top of it looked like the top of the Willy Wonka.
Yep.
When the boy and who's the boy?
Charlie,
of course, and the chocolate factory. Charlie and Grandpa are up there, and then they figure out, oh, here's how we get down. And just to bring it full circle, Seth MacFarlane also did a reference to that in one of his episodes when they visit the Duff factory. So
I have more notes on this turbolift.
Not the Duff factory.
So I think this
Duff is Simpsons.
turbolift shaft scene is also why people think of the turbolifts as elevators, even though they aren't, because they don't just go straight up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So this turbolift shaft doesn't make sense in context of what it is either.
Yeah.
And also, as they're climbing, Spock comes down from above, and they're climbing up. So if Spock could easily walk out of the bottom of the turbolift shaft, go find some boots, get on an elevator, come up above them, and come back down, couldn't they have all just walked to the elevator and rode up?
Yeah.
Stephen, I think the most unrealistic scene for you will probably be when Scotty rejects Uhura's advances.
Yeah. That defies logic.
he was being in the age of being able to give consent. He did not believe that she was giving consent willingly.
That's a fair point.
That's a good point.
That's a fair point. He was a gentleman.
Yes, he is an absolute gentleman. And that's why I believe that he was like, next time, honey.
So this brings me up to where they're revealing their pain. So Vulcans are born in caves still? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything else to say. Just sure, whatever.
I've never been able to reconcile, and maybe it's not for me to do that because maybe I don't understand Vulcan, and maybe that makes sense. But that dichotomy of the logic and very advanced people, but also kind of all these primitive things,
simplicity,
the rituals and stuff. Yeah, but I mean, I guess it makes sense. The pond farm and all that, they still pay attention to that, and then the rest of their life is ruled by that other code, stoicism, for lack of a better term, but really logic and reason. But I don't know how logic and reason play into those. But
I think if you think about how things work in, like, say, Europe or older countries than America, there's a certain link to, like, classical traditions and structures that. And I think part of that is the way that they built the world or these different worlds in Star Trek, where everything being so monolithic. The entire planet is this one thing. And so their traditions just span this whole globe for all of time. So maybe that's part of it.
So I didn't like Kirk talking about needing his pain. I guess maybe he was just referring back to that episode of the original series where he realized he needs the bad part of himself as well as the good. Just dumb.
Yeah.
Crossing the barrier was weird. And who let Kirk out at that point when they crossed the barrier that Kirk just shows up on the bridge?
And when we're crossing barriers...
I had that same question.
Yeah. I always go back to where no man has gone before. If you're going to cross the barrier.
Yeah.
That's the way to cross. And this just seemed like a rehash of that, and not a great one.
And then they see the planet, and Cybok's like, "You can have your ship back." Okay, sure. I was kind of okay with that part.
Actually, he just went ding. This is my stop.
Yeah,
this is my stop, guys. Yeah.
And I was actually kind of okay with that part.
Me too.
I even bought that Kirk was willing to check out the planet since they were already there before he locked him up. But Kirk, Spock, and McCoy took the time to change clothes before they went down to get back in uniform.
Yeah, the thing that got me was it looked like Cybok had he had always been like this kind of ruffian, hippie Vulcan.
Yeah.
And then he shows up on Shakari like clean cut. I was like, what happened here?
Wait, if you're gonna meet God, you better get a haircut or something.
But
what does God need with a haircut?
Why does God need a haircut? Why do you need to have a?
There should have been a brief montage where they were all.
To me,
there should have been a brief montage where they were all primping and getting ready to meet God.
Exactly, I needed something because that was a big
That's
jump
what they put in their uniforms.
Of hippie Cybok to clear-cut Cybok.
I mean, I was joking, but honestly, a solemn scene of them like prepping themselves would have been appropriate.
Anything.
Oh, I thought you meant like an 80s montage where they're...
That too.
I mean...
Marianne, you should understand from living in America that God is very conservative. He doesn't like people with long hair, and yet they have to be wearing suits.
Did you see the God that we got?
He didn't let Jesus get away with it. By God, he's not going to let the rest of you get away with it.
Or mixed species, yeah. Man shall not lay with Vulcan or something. Anyway. Wait.
Sorry. Before they get there, I thought when there was some good highfalutin, for lack of a better term, talk about God and what God means and that stuff. And that's another one of those moments they drop in. It's like, okay, this is an interesting conversation. This is good. Now back to the lame generic action that makes no sense. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, Jimmy.
They land the shuttle on the planet, and they all get out of the shuttle, and they're watching on the bridge. The people on the bridge are watching them, but the camera.
Yes. Oh, it drove me crazy.
Did the shuttle stick a big arm out with a camera on it?
Yeah. What are they, landed on the moon? They put out a camera so they can track everything? No, come on.
You can see from the perspective of the shuttle, not from the side like that.
I was beside myself, just like that camera was beside the shuttle.
I agree. Maybe it was a drone the shuttle popped out. If they had special effects, it would have been cool. What's so special about this planet?
That's where God is.
They're all looking around in total awe. To me, I was like, yeah, it's a planet.
It looks like any other planet. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they were looking for God.
Now that you mention it, that I was confused at that point. You know, I thought I'd looked away, and I always started backing it up a bit again. I was like, okay, I thought maybe they saw something that I missed.
They were
just
trying
like
to figure out
at
if they were on a sound stage or actually on location. That's all that was going on there.
And of course, this was all Shatner when Kirk has to question God to his face.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which just felt too easy or too weird. And then
like
Cybok immediately jumps in like that would do anything. How would Cybok jumping in do a thing to a godlike being?
Oh, yeah. I do appreciate that in this instance, they were very much like, well, no, I do and I don't appreciate it. Oh, it's just a godlike creature. Oh, man, what a bummer. It's a bummer, I think, for the audience, even though I think maybe we start to believe that Cybok might be right. You know, his quest, I think, I feel bad for him that it's not what he thought it was going to be, even though what has God need with the planet either while he's at it.
But to his credit, he realizes that. He doesn't deny it, and then he sacrifices himself to save them. Yeah. So in the end, Cybok ended up being a tragic character.
I still like him. I think obviously there was something wrong with him. I don't think his break with Vulcan made him bad, or even this. I think he just had this chaotic belief that he was going to be able to.
I don't think he should have held those people hostage. But other than that,
yes.
Wait, so was he hearing God since he was young, or hearing this thing calling to him?
I think at some point he decided it was the logical thing.
And then when Cybok is trying to save them in wrestling, Kirk's like, shoot them both with phasers from the ship. Like they don't even try to save them.
What?
Yeah.
By the way, the Cybok battle versus whatever that thing was. Keith and Jimmy, if you guys remember Lazarus from the Alternative Factor, the battle when Lazarus from the one dimension battle the other, this was on the same level of boringness and not a great battle. And
two old men struggling with each other.
And there was a point where I turned to Colleen and I said, "There's 18 minutes left in this movie. Wow, this is gonna really be something." And no, it was not.
Nope.
It was very quick once we got there.
And so I guess the overall thing, it gets back to our original thoughts, which is there are so many cool little moments, you know, between the characters and some cool stuff. It's good conversations, the scene there. But then there's these gaps of like, oh, when are we getting to another one of those? And that so I get why people don't like it.
During this conversation, it made me wonder how I would have felt this time through if I had been less familiar with what the twist was going to be. Mm-hmm. Because it never even entered my mind. I guess I had trouble putting myself in the mindset of someone who didn't know that it was going to be a letdown for Cybok. And I wonder if that would have improved like the way this scene flowed this time or something. Mm-hmm. But I think we were all just too familiar with what was going to happen. So I don't know.
I mean, I remember when I saw it in the movie theater, I knew he wasn't going to go see God. Steven, you just saw it.
I just saw it.
Did you think that he was going to see God?
No, but I thought it was going to be something closer. It just felt, it was very much a bait and switch kind of thing, I thought. Like,
I mean, after seeing all the episodes, you know, of the original series,
you know,
even when I saw it in the movie theater, I was like, well, he's going to be disappointed because they're not going to find God in this place.
Oh, this is like Wizard of Oz where the Toto pulls away the curtain or whatever. But I knew it wasn't going to be God, but I thought it would just be something more interesting. As much as I guess I hoped it wouldn't be a godlike creature, because everyone knows on this show how much I hate. I don't need another godlike creature. I don't care. So I was still disappointed.
It was super convenient they could only beam 2 away.
Yes.
That transporter fixed.
They're gonna line up that line.
Yeah.
From the callback.
Excuse me, Marianne. I have a question. Yeah. What does God need with a starship? Sorry.
Zap. Just immediate zap. That was like, well, actually, I need it for.
Wouldn't it be great if religious discussions or religious debates could have been solved as easily as just zapping people with live beams? That settles it.
I mean, if religious
you're not God.
If religious leaders could zap us with I-beams, they probably would.
While we're on that, the godlike creature with the I-beams, you could see them charging up. And it wasn't like he moved his head in any way. Libertine, run, move, do anything.
Yes.
do anything. He's not going to get you.
Well, no, they were done the dark side thing where they would just do those little zigzag lightning bolts until they found him.
I was like, come on. Yeah, it was just so terrible.
Yeah, and
now I'm liking this movie less and less the more we talk.
Every time they cut to Cyborg in front of the god, it looked just like back when they would do the here's a movie and then I'm going to stand in front of it.
It was I read that they decided to go with rear projection. That was the guy that did their effects. Let's go with rear projection. Hey,
no.
Guess what? Bad move. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought that the red alert malfunction sound would have been a great ringtone. Red alert. Red alert.
It probably still would be. I read this and I think it makes sense too. Did you guys think the whole ruse, I'm going to call it a ruse, of how they got the Klingons to help them out and blow up the godlike creature, did that ring false to you guys?
In what way? I mean,
to me, not entirely, because Spock going to Cord or whatever, the Klingon ambassador, and saying, "Damn you, sir, you will try," and him fight. I wish that character had been developed a little more, but I got enough from what we'd seen to get that arc of he was disgraced, washed up, and he took command again and took back his honor and his rank.
And I guess your point. That's a good point, Jimmy. I think if it had been better developed, how awesome he was.
Yeah.
So that even though he'd fallen out of favor, it still would have an influence on this kid, for lack of a better term.
I mean, they mentioned how awesome he was. Yeah. So it was all there.
Kirk talked him up and said that he studied his maneuvers in school or academy. That's another one of probably another casualty of the Shatner cut, perhaps. Yeah. If we'd seen the whole thing, there would have been all these other awesome things with these other side characters. But I felt okay with it, I guess.
It was just a very easy tie-up.
Yes.
All right. It was too easy, but at the same time, I appreciated the characters for going through it and making it so that this. Because one thing that was bothering me about the Klingon captain was that I felt like if they could have made it clear to him how crippled everything was at the point, or the other things that were going on, maybe he would have gone like, this is not enough of a challenge for me.
Yeah,
this would prove nothing. I thought maybe they were going to go there, but
the Spock turning around in the gunner's seat, I groan every time I see it, and yet it is one of the more memorable parts of the film for me. I mean, surely a Klingon could have and should have done that shooting, but whatever. But Spock's line following that of "Please, Captain, not in front of the Klingons." Great.
That goes back.
So then we have the after party, and David Warner gets super creepy with the Romulan ambassador.
Well, that's
super creepy.
I thought maybe that was consensual, but maybe it wasn't. You're saying
he and the actress decided that they formed a bond over it.
Okay,
so that
didn't come across.
They decided that they started to become a couple.
Okay. Are you saying that for a fact, or?
Yeah, that was a conversation those two had. I don't know if they told anybody else. But they had decided that they were a couple.
I thought maybe you looked it up or something.
No, but the interview I read with her, she said, "Yeah, we decided we were a couple."
And it was the 1-2 punch of then we immediately see Sulu and Chekhov being creepy, stalking the Klingon. Vixus.
Oh yeah.
They see Captain Claw and they turn around.
I have to say that was only Chekhov saying that. Sulu just gave Chekhov a look.
Sulu was just being the wingman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even a wingman. They weren't even talking to her. They were
following her.
Chekhov was just being a creep by following her.
Yeah.
There was an open bar at that party for sure.
What are we doing? Yeah.
Sulu was like, "Buddy, I'll help you drink away your feelings. Come back to my cabin."
Well, you know what the 80s were like in the future.
That's right. True.
Then we get the Kirk line of "Men like us don't have families." I'm like, your family's all around you. Look around.
Yeah.
You had
didn't they make that line?
Son.
Yeah.
You had a son.
Now he's nothing.
And a brother.
And a brother.
Yes, and a brother.
And a
brother
nephew.
who just like you.
Who had a nephew. He had a nephew. He's still got a nephew somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And back at the campfire, Spock finally plays "Row, row, row your boat on the lute" thing, which was, I love that he brought his instrument to play with them.
Sure.
I mean, it wasn't a guitar, thank God.
No, it was no
Might as
maiden
well.
wine, but
Yeah, it was. I like the full circle of bringing it back to the campfire, but my alternate movie, honestly, would just be the 7 lead characters having an adventure in Yosemite and not even leaving the planet.
Yeah.
A nice, fun camping movie. That would have been great and much lower budget.
Yep. That would have been more fun. My alternate movie was 2001 or The Master, if any of you saw that.
I've seen The Master,
Scientology movie. Or Star Trek The Motion Picture would be my alternate movie when they go and run into a godlike creature.
So jumping into our crushes of Star Trek film, because we're ranking the films separately.
Sure.
Steven, you still are on Carol Marcus. Are you gonna keep her?
That is not changing.
Okay. I'm on Kirstie Alley Savick, and I'm really tempted to stay with her, but I also really liked the Romulan ambassador.
If I had to pick one for this movie, it would be her.
I'm going to switch to her. I love Kirstie Alley Savick, but I also like to make the switches here.
I also appreciated the Vulcan High Priestess, but she was on too fleetingly.
Keith, you're on Robin Curtis Savick.
I don't know why, but Vixis.
Cat girl.
Something just...
Vixis? Vixis is cool.
Yeah.
Marianne, you're on Sarek.
I did like this Sarek, but he was not Mark Leonard. You know what? I'm going to pick the Federation ambassador. I liked his accent. He was
St. John Talbot.
attractive. Yep.
A solid choice. I'm tempted to pick him too, but despite him acting like a creep, I thought he was cool. I wanted to hang out with him. I wanted to drink with him. Ranking the movie, better or worse than The Wrath of Khan? No, I'm kidding.
Let's start at the top.
Well, this is only the 5th movie, so I think we could easily put it below Wrath and Voyage.
I hated it.
Put
It's
it
3.
below Search for Spock.
Yeah, to me, that's the territory we're in. I think I like Search for Spock better.
Yeah.
Me too, because the character moments felt more authentic and they felt more family-esque.
Yeah.
And you're coming right off it gets some of that Wrath of Khan glow, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is one in last place right now?
Motion pictures in last place.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Okay, I'd put it above motion picture.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess it's
I like motion. I think I like motion picture better than Search for Spock. So I would put it below that. I was the outlier on that vote as well. So
no, I like the motion picture a lot. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I feel like I like the motion picture better than Search for Spock. I don't remember.
I really like. I was the one that really, really, really liked Search for Spock and didn't like Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
That's, They tortured poor Chekhov in it.
I know.
I know.
Creatures in his body.
You like that sort of thing, though, Marianne.
I do now, and it was probably because of Wrath of Khan that made me like it was. I'm positive it's Search for Spock that made me like torture porn because of all the Spock being tortured.
I'm with Steven. I like the motion picture better than the Final Frontier. That makes this difficult if we're 2 and 2.
Go ahead and put it at the bottom.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm that being last because it was a stinker. I did like the lady in the first one. I mean, the first one was monumental in its own way.
Yeah.
This one was not. This was an episode of the series.
Yeah.
So if we
it felt a
break it
little
down
larger scale to me than an episode.
I mean, the only reason it was a little bit longer is they shoehorned in things that were to make it longer.
Yeah, no, it wasn't just the length. It wasn't just the length. I think a lot of the character stuff was better than you get in the episodes, and
yeah.
But
the camping stuff, all that character stuff, would not have
never flown in an episode. Yeah. Let's put this at the bottom. I'm glad Marianne agrees with us. They can go on the bottom. Because if we were going to tie it with the motion picture, that was rough. But yeah, I think
how
iconic it is.
If you had like that, which one should be on the bottom?
Yeah.
Easy.
Final Frontier.
Easy. I thought we were going for...
I'm still ranking Final Frontier above every Star Wars movie, so... every single one of them. Marianne just died. You can't see it.
Hey, did you guys think there were more curse words in this than any other Star Trek property?
I didn't notice. Discovery drops the F-bomb, and so there's an admiral in Star Trek Picard that loves the F-bomb. She's great.
Oh, okay, all right. So
Jean-Luc, you and your effing hubris.
So what we've watched so far, clearly in the future that is going to change. But
yeah, Star Trek 4 had funny cursing, and this had like serious cursing.
yeah, maybe that was the difference. Yeah.
It was
Anyway.
cute, and when Spock does it, not cute when someone else does it.
Next up is not Star Trek 60 Undiscovered Country. You're gonna have to wait a couple years for us to get to that because that came out in the middle of season 5 of The Next Generation.
Wow.
Next week we will be talking The Next Generation, back to season 2 of TNG, Manhunt, where a midlife Betazoid condition renders Ambassador Troy hot on the hunt for romance and wedlock with Captain Picard or any man. So Troy's mom is back and she's ready to party.
I'm interested. I'm there.
Me too. I like Lexana Troy.
Yeah.
That's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people don't like her. I like her.
Interesting. I do so far.
I do want to thank everybody that's watching this on YouTube or on Patreon and has stuck with us for 2 hours and 15 minutes. Until then, live long.
Oh, row your boat.
I was
And
just going to say row your boat. It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?